Hey guys, this is Mast, and today I'm going to be teaching you how to play Arachne in the solo lane. Now Arachne is not a standard pick in the solo lane, not even close. Her wave clear is weak compared to the other solo laners, but she does make up for her lack of clear with her incredible ability to fight one-on-one. When played correctly, she's able to stick to the enemy solo, dealing a ton of damage over time, and healing enough with her 1 to keep brawling. I've played a lot of Arachne solo over the past week, and I've found that the only matchup I even had trouble with was against Bellona, who's able to use the block passive from her 1 to completely immune Arachne's first ability. However, even that matchup is still winnable. You just have to get in an auto to break Bellona's block before you use your 1 against her. So with all of that said, let's start looking at what you need to do as Arachne in the solo lane. At level 1, Arachne's clear is weak compared to most solos, while her jungle clear is very strong. That's why you start with Death's Toll and Bumba's Mask, as well as 3 health potions and 1 mana potion, setting up 2 webs in your own blue buff to start at blue instead of at the minion wave. Now the reason you do this is because you can wrap up blue buff very quickly, then head to the minion wave, normally missing just a single minion and getting an early experience lead since you've got your blue buff finished all by yourself. Now in the early levels with Arachne, about up until level 5, you want to be focused on clearing the wave to the best of your ability and trying to cast your spider web where your opponent cannot hit the spiders with their abilities. Spiders get one shot by some abilities, and even when they're not one shot they do get very low, which means you often want to be letting them use their cooldowns first in order to keep your spiders alive. You will get out-cleared in these early levels by most solo lane gods, but keeping your spiders alive is going to help you keep up and farm. Whenever you do outclear your opponent, or you just have time between minion waves, look to take a buff in the jungle, whether that's the fire elementals or the enemy's blue buff. With Death's Toll and Bumba's Mask, you can easily tank these jungle buffs, and you're actually going to heal up off of them, which means not only are you gaining health, but you're also gaining farm by taking these buffs between waves. And while you can fight in the early levels, it's normally tough to do so without tanking an entire minion wave. In these levels, you have 2 spots where you should be fighting your opponent. You can fight once the majority of the wave is cleared and you have your 1 and or your 3 off of cooldown, or you can engage when they're clearing inside of your own minion wave, meaning that their archers can't reach you, and therefore you can attack without getting poked out by minions. Early on, you just don't have a ton of auto attack damage, so these are the only spots that you really want to be fighting because of minion aggro. You don't want to get poked out by those minions, but once you get boots done, that's going to change. So once you've backed, bought teleport, and finished your tier 3 boots, your damage numbers change by a ton. Your auto attacks will now be doing nearly twice as much damage as before, and that means that you can be much more aggressive in the lane. In the lane, you want to be engaging your opponent with your first and second abilities in order to force them to use their abilities as either wave clear, an attack on you, or an escape from you. If they try to escape, you can use your spiders to stick to them with your auto attacks and force them back under their tower. If they aggress onto you, use your spiders once their main damage ability is down to help keep the spiders alive and deal extra damage for longer while you take the one-on-one engagement with them. And finally, if they clear the wave, again, you're throwing spiders in their face. Basically, you just try to let them use their abilities and you throw spiders at them. Arachne solo really isn't that hard. As Arachne, you'll often have at least 1 enemy minion alive since you're so often fighting the enemy solo laner and not as much clearing the wave. This is actually something you can do on purpose because with a low cooldown of your first ability, you can use this minion for an extra heal. Oftentimes fighting between waves isn't that great because if your spiders are on cooldown but your opponent's abilities are not, they have an advantage over you. You can use a leftover minion to get 2 heals from your 1 each wave, which adds up a lot and makes Arachne much more difficult to play against. Another tip, especially as you start getting past level 10, is to use your spiders as a means to temporarily dive tower. You don't even have to commit to a kill, but when spiders are tanking tower, you're free to dive, and most enemies don't expect this. Let your spiders go under tower first, activate your 2 and your 1, get off a ton of damage, and get out before you take too many tower shots. And of course, if you do have the damage to kill, go for it. And when playing against gods with hard crowd controls that can lock you under their tower, don't be afraid to use your ultimate as a way to gain crowd control immunity and get out before they can lock you down. Summing up, look to take jungle buffs when you can, clear the wave and play safe in the first few levels, play aggressive and look for 1v1s once you have your boots done, keeping a minion alive can be helpful for using your 1 to heal, and don't be afraid to dive tower as long as you let your spiders go first. Before I start talking about the teamfight stage though, let's go ahead and talk about how you should be building Arachne in the solo lane. So what I'm going to bring up is 3 different situations to build around here. For the first build, you're matched up against a physical god in the solo lane and you're winning the lane early on, which allows you to build damage over defense. For the second build, you're matched up against a Guardian or a Mage, which changes some of your item selection. And finally, for the third build, you're going up against a physical but falling behind early, whether that's through jungle pressure or you're getting outplayed in the lane. Alright, so in build number 1, you're getting ahead early and therefore you get to build a little bit greedy. So here's what you're going to want to build. So in this build, after you finish Warrior Tabby, you're going to go into Ikevall, then Stone Cutting Sword, and finally into a Titan's Bane as your fourth item. From here, you can choose from a list of items that I'm going to put up on the screen now for you, opting into more damage or defense just based on the team you're against. This part is very much up to you. When going against physical damage in the team fight stage, items such as Hide of the Nemean Lion can be very helpful for taking 1v1s against physical gods, Pestilence can be very helpful for 1v1s against magical gods, and then of course there are also utility items such as Winged Blade for slows and Mad Guy's Blessing for hard crowd control. In build number 2, you're up against a magical, and therefore both Ikevall and Stone Cutting Sword don't make too much sense. In matchups like these, I like to go into Penetration, grabbing Jotun's Wrath, Brawler's Beatstick, and then a Titan's Bane, yet again leaving 2 slots open based on what you're going against in the teamfight stage. And finally on to build number 3, where you're struggling in the lane either from jungle pressure or just losing 1v1s and you need some help to stay alive. Here I like to pick up a Breastplate of Valor second and then a Jotun's Wrath third, again picking up Titan's Bane fourth and leaving 2 slots open for the teamfight stage. When you're behind, defense and cooldown reduction is extremely helpful here because it's going to make you tankier through defense and it's going to get your heal up more often with the cooldown reduction. This build will make it much easier to stay alive once you're already behind. So now that I've gone over the builds, let's take a look at the teamfight stage. In teamfights, you need to be looking at single targets to engage on. Arachne has literally no AoE abilities outside of her ult, which means you need to be focused on picking a good target for you to engage one-on-one. Unfortunately, it's not always possible to engage one-on-one because the enemy team may be grouping together too well. In spots like these, it's important to wait for the enemy team to engage so you can counter-engage onto the backline, looking to pick off either the mage or the AD carry. And when possible, engage with your 1 and 2, leaving your 3 up off of cooldown. This is important for enemies with dashes or leaps, as well as enemies with beads up off of cooldown, because once they leap away or beads your stun, you can speed yourself up and slow them by hitting them with your 3, sticking to that enemy for even longer. This is also great for keeping your ult off of cooldown because you really want to be able to rely on this ability as an escape as much as you possibly can. You should never be engaging a fight with your ult, only escaping a fight or finishing off a kill if they get away from you while they're low. And when you're engaging with multiple enemies near your target, make sure their crowd control is down or that you're ready to immune any crowd control that they have up. Avoiding hard crowd controls from the tank while you dive onto a squishy enemy is extremely effective because you're taking on a 1v2, and as long as you can immune the CC with either your ult or beads, you'll have no problem doing so. Arachne is all about assessing your situation before you engage, knowing what's off of cooldown and who's nearby to help your victim. Anyways, that wraps up the video, everyone. Hopefully everything was easy enough to follow for you. If you have any questions for me, feel free to leave them down in the comment section below. I'd also love some feedback on the video so that if anything was hard to follow or you felt like I could have done something better, I can improve it for the next one. Thanks for watching, everyone. As always, this is Mast, and I'll see y'all in the next one.
I've been seeking for the glory, say my name. And I've been trying to write my own story in the search for fame. I'm sitting here in this empty room, walls keep tumbling down.